The valley smelled like iron and old leather, like 10,000 men who hadn't slept well in weeks. The Elah Valley cut through the hill country of Judah like a scar in the earth, its floor pale with limestone dust, its slopes dotted with scrub oak and the dark shapes of thousands of tents. Two armies faced each other across that valley, the Philistines on one ridge, Israel on the other, and between them, nothing but open ground that no one dared cross. It was the kind of standoff that grinds men down before a single sword is swung. King Saul's army had been camped here for 40 days. 40 days of dust and waiting and the slow erosion of courage. Israel was a young nation still finding its footing, a people who had asked for a king so they could be like other nations, and now that king stood taller than any man in the army, broad-shouldered and battle-tested, and even he could not seem to make himself walk down into that valley. Something held him back, something that had started appearing every morning and every evening like a terrible clock, marking time. And far away from all of this, in the green hills outside Bethlehem, a boy named David was watching sheep. He was the youngest of 8 brothers, Jesse's son, the one they sent to the fields because there were older, more impressive sons to stand in important places. He knew the smell of wool and rain, the sound of a flock settling at dusk, the weight of a smooth stone in his palm. He had killed a lion once, a bear another time, not because he was fearless, but because the sheep were his responsibility and he took that seriously. He had no idea that history was waiting for him in that valley. Every morning, the same thing happened. The Philistine champion came down from his camp and stood at the edge of no man's land and bellowed a challenge across the open ground. His name was Goliath, from Gath. The scripture is precise about his measurements, 6 cubits and a span. That's over 9 feet tall. His bronze armor weighed 5,000 shekels. The iron point of his spear alone weighed 600 shekels. When he walked, the ground seemed to notice. His voice carried up both hillsides like a roll of thunder. Asterisk. Why do you come out and line up for battle? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. Asterisk. And then the part that cut deepest. Asterisk. I defy the armies of Israel this day. Asterisk. The men of Israel heard it and felt something cold move through their chests. The text says they fled from him and were greatly afraid. 40 days of this. 40 mornings of walking out to the battle line, hearing that voice, and retreating back to their tents with a little less of themselves intact. David arrived in the camp carrying roasted grain and loaves of bread for his brothers, an errand boy, essentially, sent by his father to check on the older sons. He found his brothers, started talking to them, and then the ritual began again. Goliath stepped forward from the Philistine lines. The Israelite soldiers who had been standing tall a moment before began to pull back, backing away slowly at first, then more quickly, like a tide going out. David watched this, and something moved in him that wasn't strategic or calculated. It was almost confused. He asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? His oldest brother Eliab heard him and was furious. Why have you come down here? He demanded. Who is watching those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. There's something sharp and familiar in that exchange. The older sibling who mistakes confidence for arrogance, who sees enthusiasm where he should see calling. David barely flinched. He turned away and asked someone else the same question. Word reached King Saul. The boy was brought before him. Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. David told the king, your servant will go and fight him. Saul looked at this shepherd boy, young, unarmored, still carrying the smell of the countryside, and said what any reasonable commander would say. You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. But David didn't flinch. He spoke of the lion and the bear, spoke of the hand of God delivering him from both, and his certainty was so complete it was almost unsettling. Saul eventually gave him permission. He even dressed David in his own armor, bronze helmet, coat of mail. David tried to walk and couldn't manage it. He had never worn armor. He took it all off. He went to a stream and chose 5 smooth stones. The valley was quiet in a particular way when David walked out into it, the kind of quiet that falls when thousands of people hold their breath at once. From the Philistine side, Goliath walked forward with his shield-bearer ahead of him, and when he finally got close enough to see what Israel had sent, he stopped. He looked at David, the ruddy complexion, the shepherd's staff, the sling hanging loose at his side, and he didn't feel threatened. He felt insulted. Asterisk, am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks? Asterisk, and then he cursed David by his gods. Asterisk, come here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. Asterisk, David answered him. His words carried across that limestone valley and up both hillsides so that every watching soldier could hear them. Asterisk, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. Asterisk. Then David ran toward the giant. He reached into his bag, took out 1 smooth stone, loaded his sling, and let it fly. The stone struck Goliath in the forehead and sank in. The great man swayed, that enormous armored body tilting like a felled tree, and then he fell face down into the dust. The sound of it reached both ridgelines like a thunderclap in reverse, something ending rather than beginning. The Philistine army broke and ran. The men of Israel who had retreated every morning for 40 days suddenly surged forward, shouting, pouring down the hillside and across the valley floor. The momentum of the whole story reversed in a single moment, carried on the weight of 1 stone and a shepherd's absolute trust. What do we do with a story like this? It would be easy to flatten it into a simple lesson about courage or smallness defeating bigness, or the right attitude winning the day. But the story resists that. It's wilder and stranger and more honest than that. What actually happened in that valley was that a boy walked into an impossible situation carrying nothing but a sling, 5 stones, and a conviction so deep it didn't leave room for doubt. Not because he had calculated the odds, not because he was fearless, but because he had lived long enough with God, in the quiet fields, in the dangerous nights, in the ordinary faithfulness of caring for sheep, that when the moment came, he simply knew what was true. Goliath was enormous, but David wasn't fighting Goliath. The world turns, again and again, not on the shoulders of the powerful, but in the hands of those who believe something the powerful have forgotten, that there is a God in Israel, that size is not the measure of strength, and that sometimes the whole direction of history pivots on 5 smooth stones chosen carefully from a quiet stream. That valley is still there. The stream still runs through it. And somewhere in the world tonight, another shepherd is choosing stones.